Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We have seen a new phenomena. It has been there earlier also, but now it's assuming very, even I'll call it dangerous dimensions. We fully agree that a protest march or protest of any nature is a hallmark of freedom and democracy. People have all right to express their resentment and demand redressal of those events. But there's a limit. And your liberty ends where my nose begins. That's a standard procedure. When these protests result in wanton acts of violence, loss of limb or life, but also of property, then there's something wrong with the protest. You remember that during the Quit India movement, there was some violence at a village in Bihar, Chora Chori, and Gandhi stopped the movement, despite the protests of all others, because that violence was no reason. And if that was bad, these wanton acts of property damage, both private and public, cannot be tolerated. Now in India, a new trend emerged, and that was started by the UP government. Now it's being followed by many other governments. The legality of that can be in doubt, and that is being discussed with the Supreme Court. What UP did was that they started imposing collective fines and also destroyed the property of the people who were involved in damaging the public and the private property during protests. They brought the bulldozers to the streets, and bulldozer became a hallmark of counter protest. That by itself may not be acceptable, but then drastic diseases do need drastic remedies. Now what has happened is that the government of India banned PFI, Popular Front of India. And Popular Front of India has been declared a terrorist organization, is banned, and it has damaged a lot of property according to the complaints. Last year, on September 23, they had organized a strike, and in that, huge property was destroyed. So the High Court of Kerala has directed PFI, the Popular Front of India, to deposit 5.2 crores of rupees for damages incurred during their strike. It's a very rare case of speedy remedial action. But one thing you cannot deny, that those damaging public and private property must be effectively punished. Some states have enacted law. The Supreme Court laid down guidelines in 2009 which prescribed a fair procedure for the high courts. And the high courts were empowered to initiate suo motu proceedings and appoint a judicial officer as claims commissioner. So anybody whose property was damaged, whether it was a private property or the government property, could go to the claim commissioner and claim redressal. The government of Kerala in India enacted a law in 2019 to recover damages for private property destruction, but they did not touch the public property, as if public property is not owned. It's owned by the public. It's paid by the taxpayer. And this was done despite parties in agitation-prone areas frequently destroy public property. UP, as I said earlier, took the most drastic steps. They passed a law in 2020 which enables recovery of damages for both public and private property loss. But the Supreme Court found great divergence from the due process in the recovery of damages from the anti-CA protests and those directed by the other governments. So Supreme Court ordered UP to follow the guidelines and law which had been laid on earlier. The centre's law is already there, Prevention of Damage to the Public Property Act of 1984, which is so outdated and it appears it belongs to the dark ages. And it just focuses on the criminal prosecution. Now what we need is a smart law, which is quick, which is effective, which is retributory, and which is deterrent. After two Supreme Court committees suggested measures giving teeth to this act, a 2015 amendment bill suggested placing a burden of proof on the accused, fixing responsibility on organizations and office bearers, and pegging the fine as the market value of the property lost. Apparently a great idea, but then there are some problems. First, the burden of proof is on the accused. It should be on the claimant. But as you very correctly might say, that in a public protest where huge number involved, you cannot fix the blame on one person. So the organizers should be held responsible. Now fixing culpability of the police officers and government officers who are not capable of protecting the property, who fail to prevent the violence, is very important too. While the people who have indulged in violence must be punished, the police and the law and order machinery, which fail to take proper, effective steps, also needs to be punished. You have got to ensure the process of equitability is maintained. You cannot pass a law which punishes one party but the other party by default escapes. So these two subcommittees formed by the Supreme Court, they said that the 2015 law needs a lot of teeth. And naturally, let them prove that they were not guilty. And the office bearers who have organized must bear the responsibility. Now let me make one thing clear. Protests hardly are ever spontaneous. There are times when they are spontaneous, but in 9 out of 10 cases, they are organized, and the organizers want to send a message and prove their nuisance worth apart from posing as custodians of freedom and rights. Now recently again there were protests against the government new defense recruitment policy called the Agniveer policy in India. They caused huge damage, but there was no punishment at all. Similarly, the cadres and the leaders of the established political parties have rarely been punished. If we look at the punishment meted out in UP or anywhere else, I find that the common people who might be an innocent spectator or against whom there might be animus is punished. But the real guilty go off scot-free. In some cases, of course, proper action has been taken, but mostly it has not been. Now, let me say one thing very clearly. That's not only in India. Public property has been destroyed in other places as well. Vandalism is prevalent even in USA, even in Canada, the so-called lighthouses of democracy. It's a human nature to vent your grievance on mute things. Property is mute, it cannot protest. And then, when the property is destroyed, the person who owns the property is hurt deeply. So it serves two purposes. One, there is no retaliation, immediate retaliation. So law has to be such that the owners feel that something is there to retaliate and protect them. This Agniveer protest, basically army had to take steps and they gave a notice that anybody arrested by the police in this connection would never get a job in army because army cannot tolerate indiscipline. They sent a message home and the protest started fizzling out. But the people who organized the political parties, the leaders, they should have been punished at least. All property lost must be compensated for whether it's a private property or whether it's a public property. Now the suggestion of the Supreme Court that the High Court should take suo motu action is excellently welcome, but I would say it should be delegated further. Many a times the protest may be localized, and by the time the information reaches the High Court, it may be too late. So the district and session judge should be given the duty to take effective immediate measures, and if not even take action, they should be allowed to order the videotaping of those protests, particularly in reference to the destruction of property, destruction of life, because as I said, 9 out of 10 times the police itself is inefficient. And that's what happened when the police was quiet. For example, in 1984 killing of the Sikhs in Delhi. Even when they are not a party, and most of them they are a party, they keep quiet. They don't want to show that they have failed. So, the session judge, if he has an independent staff who can do something, and then send that report to the High Court, would be able to add bite to the law. What we need is not provincial laws. This law and order, though, is a provincial subject. This loss of property is basically a hit at the fundamental rights. So we need a uniform central legislation in India and a similar legislation all over the world. This legislation should ensure time-bound inquiry into damages. That is first part. Second, recovery of the assets. The people who are guilty should not be able to pass on the buck. We don't have property, we don't have the money. No. As a matter of fact, in India this is happening a lot, in Pakistan also, Benami transactions. These politicians, what they do is, they own the property but not in their own names. So the responsibility cannot be fixed. So Benami transactions should be watched properly. So this central uniform legislation, time-honored inquiry, recovery of assets, and criminal proceeding against the offenders. That's right. They should not only be made to pay for the loss of property, but should also be punished for violating the principle of fundamental rights as well as disturbing public peace. Now what happens is, such an act is needed to empower the police to act without fear or favor against these vandals. They are no better than vandals, and they need to be treated as such. And they can be treated as such provided the law and order authorities are given sufficient teeth to do it. Unfortunately, that's not done. And that causes most of the problem. Then the vandals are often the workers of the political parties. So even if you arrest them, their godfathers will help them. What is needed is that the main organizers see there is a party X and they have engaged in the head of the party may be sitting in Delhi, should be immediately arrested and prosecuted and held personally responsible. That's why I said earlier that we don't need an ordinary law, we need a smart law. A smart law that will make people realize that their lives and the properties are safe, that their property hard-earned. You see, right to life and right to property are two fundamental rights. And these vandals are violating both the rights. So they are not only criminally guilty, they are also civilian defaulters. And as such, a centrally ordained law in case of India, and similar federal laws all the world, would be required, and sooner the better. The delays can only create discontentment, frustration, resentment, and a desire to take counter-action, resulting thereby in many civil wars, and that's not a welcome thing. Think about it. Thank you.